Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, April 24th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, today we have a great number of feasts, and we have a very particular one, which is celebrated all across the globe. This is Madonna della Bonaria, or known as Our Lady of Good Air, if you want to call it that, or Nuestra Señora del Buen Aire, which is where the city of Buenos Aires gets its name. So, let's see about that. Now, it says that devotion goes back to 1370 in Sardinia, Italy, right? In fact, Mary was declared the patroness of Sardinia in 1908. But it's an interesting advocation, right? We're told that this devotion has its origins in Sardinia all the way back in the 14th century, so 1370 would make sense. But already in the 16th century, there was a confraternity of Our Lady of Good Air in Seville, right? It was the confraternity to which the sailors belonged, right? And like we said, it's this devotion that gives the name to the city of Buenos Aires, right? So what exactly is the deal? What's the connection? Like we said, it's a devotion in Sardinia. That's where it started. But in 1536, the Spanish explorer Pedro de Mendoza found and named the port of Buenos Aires, right? Now, among the people that he had brought with him was a Sardinian squire, 2 friars of the Order of Mercy, the Mercedarians, and an image of Santa Maria del Buen Aire, right? Like we had said, sailors and navigators had already claimed Our Lady of Good Air as their patroness, and they spread her fame far and wide from her original Mercedarian shrine of Bonaria in Sardinia, right? So that's why the Mercedarians, what they have to do with this, right? They had spread it already to Mendoza's homeland of Andalusia in southern Spain, and perhaps because of the fact that she assisted mariners and sailors, her title was changed in Argentina and some other places to Nuestra Señora de los Buenos Aires, right? So that's Bonaria or Buen Aire, which is good air. But Buenos Aires would be like Our Lady of Good Winds, right? On April 24th, 1870, and this is during the 500th anniversary celebration of the mysterious arrival of Our Lady statue to Sardinia by sea, the Bishop of Eritrea, Giovanni Lacovacci, crowned the Madonna of Bonaria on the authority of Pius IX, right? And since then, people who are devoted to Our Lady of Good Air have celebrated April 24th in her honor, in addition to other traditional dates, like March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation, which also is when the statue floated into Cagliari, that's in Sardinia, and August 15th, the Feast of the Assumption. Now, this is sort of a funny thing, though, right? Because remember that Pedro de Mendoza arrived in 1536 and founded and named the city Buenos Aires, right? But, oddly enough, there was no church in Buenos Aires dedicated to Our Lady of Good Air or Winds, right? So the city's called Buenos Aires, but there was no church dedicated to her, right? You could find images of her in the cathedral and other churches, but there was no church. So, with the support of Sardinian immigrants, the Church of Nuestra Señora de los Buenos Aires was begun in 1911 and was finally finished and inaugurated on December 3rd, 1932. That's almost 400 years after Mendoza gave her name to the Argentinian capital. By then, April 24th had become the liturgical feast day of Our Lady of Good Winds, right? So it is to the name day of Buenos Aires, although not its patronal feast day, right? Because the patronal feast is celebrated on November 11th, the feast of Saint Martin, right? But on April 24th, the Orden de Caballeria, the Knights of Santa Maria de los Buenos Aires, holds a special mass and the members renew their promises in the Buenos Aires Cathedral, right? So that's a very important feast day. We also recall the Beata Vergine de la Salve in Alessandria, Piedmont, Italy. It was in 1489 and 1945 that the statue sweated, right? Also, we go to Rho in Milan, in Lombardy, Italy, where they celebrate the Madonna Addolorata, Our Lady of Sorrows, right? In 1583, this painting wept blood, And so Italian sources tell us the following, that it was Sunday, April 24th, 1583, when Girolamo dei Ferri went in to pray beside this image of Our Lady. It's like a Pietà, like Our Lady of Sorrows, right? So when he went to go pray, he looked at Our Lady's face, and it seemed to change color and become very pallid, very pale, right? So he was very moved, and so he went out of the church, and he saw one of his friends, Alessandro de Chioldi, who was coming to the church to say his devotional prayers. And so without saying anything, De Ferri re-entered the church, and the two of them together looked at the image of Our Lady, right? And they were surprised because it seemed like there were tears or something in her eyes, right? So the two of them, with a white handkerchief, went to go dry her eyes that were shedding tears of blood, right? So the archbishop at the time was quickly informed, and he, did the usual canonical investigation and ordered that a shrine be built. It's the actual large church that's there. That cardinal archbishop is, in his own right, very famous because he's Saint Charles Borromeo, right? And lastly, we go to Windhoek in Namibia, where the Catholic Cathedral of St. Mary was dedicated on this day in 1932. And so that is what we are celebrating today, April 24th, in the Marian world. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with meditation 58, the life at Nazareth. And now, these considerations, and the last one, the last life of Nazareth consideration, concerns the life of Jesus and Mary together. And so our second point is the Son of God. On the other hand, Mary saw in Jesus not only her own Son, but also the Son of God. Hence all her affection, immense though it was always mixed with the highest respect and veneration. It is a sublime inference that God placed in the heart of the Virgin Mother all the love, all the fond tenderness that the whole mankind ought to have for Jesus. Mary herself loved her Son more than the rest of creatures. From the very first moments of her ardent love, she was able to atone for all the forgetfulness and ingratitude of all men who, out of ignorance or malice, would not accept their Savior. Thus, Mary in her heart represented all mankind, and on their behalf she performed the functions of mother, since indeed her Son was not only for her, but also for all of us. He equally belongs to us all. For today's reading from the Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue with part 8, which discusses the holiness of Mary's heart as one of the foundations for this devotion to her admirable heart. And we're going to read the conclusion of chapter 3, Heart of Mary, Miracle of Love. Finally, the virginal heart of Mary became so completely transfigured by love that Suarez boldly affirms that the effects and acts of its love were innumerable. Now, if Saint Bernardine writes that the 7 words spoken by the Blessed Virgin, as related in the Holy Gospels, were 7 flames of love, what shall we say of all the acts and effects of love which sprang from that glowing furnace, except that they were as many fires and flames of divine love, which would be capable of kindling all the hearts in the universe, if no obstacles were raised by the frigidity of sin? To this we must add the further words of Saint Bernardine. The Blessed Virgin's love for her Son was so great that she would have been willing to die for him times without number. Furthermore, it is quite certain that Our Lady's love was almost without limit or measure. Hence, one must not hesitate to say that she would have been ready to suffer as many deaths and as many infernal torments for her Son's sake as there are atoms in the air and grains of sand on the seashore. Now, count all the acts of love mentioned by Suarez and Saint Bernardine, as well as all the deaths and infernal torments she would gladly have suffered, and you will count the effects of the love that consumes the marvelous heart of the Mother of Fair Love. Nor is this all. You must also count the numberless acts and the myriad effects of love that were ever produced in heaven and on earth by the hearts of all the seraphim and the other angelic spirits, of all the holy confessors, of all the holy virgins, and of all the saints, and you will still be counting as many effects of the ineffable love that burns in the heart of our Saviour's Mother. It is undoubtedly true that quod est causa causae est causa causati, that is, that the effects proceeding from a cause must be attributed to the principle and origin of that cause. Now, it is a doctrine of faith that Mary is the mother of the God of love. We must conclude, therefore, that the love which burns in the hearts of all the angels and all saints, and all the acts and effects of love ever produced by them, having proceeded from the adorable heart of that God of love, are to be reckoned among the effects of the admirable heart of his Holy Mother. This is what Saint Bernard has in mind when he tells us that God has decreed that we should receive everything through Mary. And another holy doctor adds, without Mary's petition and intercession, nothing comes down to us from heaven. This is also signified by the words of Raymond Jourdain. Whatever good and precious things the world possesses has come to it through Mary, in Mary, with Mary, and from Mary. And have we not heard St. Irenaeus explain that God accomplished the mystery of the Incarnation only with the consent of the glorious Virgin, because he willed that she should be the principle of every good for mankind? O Jesus Christ, God of love, may all the hearts and tongues of angels and of men love and glorify you infinitely and eternally, for having established such a furnace of love in your peerless mother's divine heart. O God of my heart, I offer you all her love to atone for the icy coldness of my miserable heart. O Mother of love, send into our hearts some living sparks from the divine fire that burns in your virginal heart, and be pleased to associate your unworthy children with you in all the love and glory you do forever render to the most adorable and amiable Trinity.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.